Hey guys, Lee Labrada here, coming at you live from the Labrada Nutrition Gym in Houston, Texas. I am with IFBB Olympian Hunter Labrada.
And son.
And son. That's right. It is a father and son team, for sure. Yeah. We are very, very happy to be here with you guys. We're looking forward to addressing your questions today, and we're in for a very exciting announcement here shortly.
Yeah, so like he said, Lee Labrada, Hunter Labrada here today, guys. While this Instagram Live is about the Pro Series, I want to get it out there right now. This is more about showing y'all everything we have going on. We're in a new building. We're in a new gym, very new. As you can see, it's kind of like still getting put together in the background. We obviously have a new product series to show y'all. But most importantly, at the end of the day, I want y'all to enjoy this live. So any questions you have for Lee and I pertaining to the Pro Series, pertaining to anything, anything to do with him and I, whether it's, him and Lee Haney's battles, or what it was like for Ian and I on stage at Tampa, or what it was like at the first Olympia, or, what I'm training this afternoon. I don't care. We just want to kind of hang out and talk with y'all for an hour. We've really been looking forward to launching this, and it's exciting for us. So without further ado, I guess the first thing that we kind of wanted to talk about is I haven't put any content out in a really long time. So I kind of wanted to share what we have been up to, both on a personal level of my bodybuilding, and then what we've been up to as a company. So I'm going to let him talk a little bit first about, what we've been up to as a company, because we've got some exciting things that have happened in the last couple months for sure.
Absolutely. So as Hunter mentioned, we're here at the Labrada Nutrition Gym. It's starting to take shape. You can actually start to see some of the really nice equipment that we got coming in. We got some Arsenal, some Prime. We have the Intech dumbbells that go up to 200 pounds. If you guys haven't seen those yet, be sure to check out my post on my Instagram, Lee Labrada Official. And so we're here in this gym. It's a huge gym. It's going to be for professional bodybuilders and athletes. And just very, very excited about the new building, new headquarters that we just moved into. You guys will be getting an insider.
The sign just went up.
What's that?
The sign just went up.
The sign just went up.
Yeah.
You guys will be getting an insider view of that in the weeks ahead. But as he said, our sign just went up outside, and so we're official. And we're very, very excited about the building.
Yeah. Official, but kind of camping still. Everyone's still kind of unpacking their boxes and stuff, but. Like he said, everyone's really excited to get over here. Me on a personal level, I could not be more excited, A, because it's a sign of, the family's company moving forward. We're in our own building. It was a big move for us. But, B, the room that we're standing in, I fully plan on training in this room for the rest of my bodybuilding career. All the Olympias, all the pro shows, this is where I'll be training. So, to be able to sit here and launch this series, and to be able to do this live and share it with y'all today really is a special moment for me, because there's going to be a lot of memories made in this room, and this is the first one that I'm making. So that's really special to me. So thank you for that, guys.
As we were laying the gym out and the floor plan for the building months ago, I kept showing it to Hunter, and he kept telling me that I needed to make the gym even bigger. And I'd show it to him again, and he goes, you need to make it even bigger. So we ended up with this huge gym, as you can see behind us here, and we spec'd out all of the equipment ourselves. Literally it's a Olympian's wish list. It's a bodybuilder's dream come true. So we're really looking forward to all of the training here. And I figured that if I just hang out with this guy, I might be able to get my arms half as big as his.
They were plenty big when they needed to be, right?
That's right.
Anyways, so, moving on to what's been going on with the company, I'll give you all a little update on what's been going on with me. Obviously, had a good rookie season last year, won the pro debut, and then debuted at the Olympia in 8th place. So was good enough that I could hold my head high, but not good enough that I was satisfied whatsoever. So enter the off season this year. It was no secret that I needed to improve my back a lot, and then, just generally get bigger. I feel like we've done that, and I feel like we did it while maintaining a really, really good body composition. We're sitting at 13 weeks out from the Chicago Pro this year. I already know it's going to be a stacked show just off the guys that I know that have said they're doing it so far. So I'm really looking forward to that. But the spot that we're sitting in, it should make for a very interesting prep that I'm looking forward to sharing with y'all every step of the way. We're so lean right now. I feel like I could be ready for a show in 6 weeks comfortably, just doing things like I normally do, not even trying to do anything faster than normal. So, with the amount of time that we have to work with, because I'm not going to say play with, but work with, we definitely have some time to continue to grow into the show and, really just maintain the body fat level until we get, closer to that 8-week out mark and then start bringing it down. So that's the plan so far for this year as far as bodybuilding goes. But
Hunter, what are you going to be doing different on your approach to this show from, let's say, the prior show? What did you learn at the Olympia?
Learn from the Olympia, definitely to come in a little tighter, definitely to come in a little harder. Obviously, that's been the story of my bodybuilding career thus far. But something that I learned on that prep, and then something that I learned in the weeks after the Tampa show, and then subsequently the weeks after the Olympia, is that I need to eat more, especially as I get in those last couple of weeks. I had some stubborn body fat and a couple issues come up on the Olympia prep, and at first it was okay, let's hammer, and hindsight's 2020. Sometimes pushing just does the exact opposite. So
do you think that your body locked up? In other words, that it was fighting you to release that last bit of body fat? And if so, do you think that the answer is to eat more?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the answer is to eat more, but you can't just eat more if you're already in that bad spot. At that point, I feel like my metabolism had slowed down a lot. I'm one of those guys that'll eat 800, 900 grams of carbs and stay relatively lean. But, at that point I was eating, like sub 200 a day and it wasn't coming off still. So
yeah, that's not a lot for a guy your size.
That was indicative of a very slow metabolism. So, enter this show. The food's extraordinarily high and we're doing 0 minutes of cardio still. So, have a lot of bullets in the gun left to play with. So we're going to keep the food as high as we can, because the second we introduce cardio, it's going to bring me down a lot. The second, so we have a lot of steps to take before we have to start messing with the food a lot.
It reminds me of a mistake that I made back when I was competing in the Mr. Olympia. One year, I went into the show and I thought to myself that I was going to knock my carbs down like below 100 grams, and I had my calories down to something ridiculous, like 1,800 calories per day. And it got to the point where my metabolism literally slowed down and I stopped losing body fat. It just became harder, and I ended up burning up a lot of muscle. And then what was interesting is that that after the Olympia, they had a number of these Grand Prix shows. We would go on a tour and we would compete in a different country every weekend, so we would do this for several weeks afterwards. And as those weeks went on and I started filling back out, my metabolism revved back up again, and I actually started dropping body fat and I started getting harder. So I can absolutely relate to what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So how is your training is your training any different for the approach to this next show, or is it what you have always done?
It is what I've always done in terms of, like the last 2 years. Anyone that follows me, and for those that don't, is really easy to explain. The training doesn't change. We're always pushing to or past failure, depending on the part of the year that we're in. I'm prep, and you get closer to the show, we'll take out a lot of the forced reps and the intensity techniques, but we're always still pushing for that failure with a certain rep range. And that failure will go up and down depending on the time of year. But
do you go to failure on every set?
Not every set. So obviously we'll do working sets for each exercise. We'll take as many warm-up sets as we need, with the whole idea behind the warm-up sets to waste absolutely no energy working up to those top set weights, and to perform the working sets to absolute failure or beyond in most cases, with especially in the off-season environment.
So now, once you've done those 2 working sets and you've gone to failure, are you done at that point, or do you continue to do other exercises for the muscle?
Definitely move on to a different exercise. I'd say right now, bigger body parts, we're doing between 4 and 6 working sets of workout. And then, like arms, typically it'll just be like 4-ish sets.
Yeah. Now, some people would say, how on earth do you develop a physique that big with so few working sets? What's your answer to that?
My answer to that is, when we're in the gym, we're trying to cause a growth response. I've gotten very good over the years at causing that growth response in a very short amount of time. It takes a lot of time to develop the connection to the body parts to do that, but B, to develop, the mentality to take the sets to where they need to go, to put it bluntly. We always talk about like how to describe the training form. You know, it's like gun to your head intensity with empty bar form, and then using a load that you can do with a certain rep range. Like at the end of the day, that's all that it is. Like your set needs to be taken to the point where if someone had a gun to your head, you couldn't do another one. You need to do it with perfect form,
right.
And it needs to be with a weight that makes you fail in your desired rep range. In my case, that's 8 to 12 reps.
Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed in watching the training videos that you put out on your channel on a regular basis is that your form is very strict. You know, and as big as you are, the form is very strict. I want to just take a quick moment to let you guys know that we are near train tracks. And so I love the sound of trains. So if you hear that train in the background, it's because we got a train coming by. So I hope that you'll just bear with us. But coming back to the question, you know, you have a very strict form, you know, and looking at how big you are, there's a lot of guys your size that really don't. They use a lot of cheating. What's your answer to that?
At the end of the day, I'm after training a muscle. Any extra body English or momentum or this or that's taking tension away from the muscle and opening up a chance for injury. And the way that I train, you know, every training session we're trying to progress the lift in some way, whether it be the weight on the bar or the reps or, you know, the time under tension, whatever it may be. And if you don't have a standardized rep, you know, i.e., you know, perfect form, you can't progress because, you know, like one day you're power humping the bench press up and then the next week you're like, oh, I'll be a little bit more strict, and then there's no
continuity.
There's no standardization,
right.
So you can't actually progress. You don't know if you're progressing. So
right.
It's you know, it's crucial in every aspect to have that form, in my opinion.
And I think that it minimizes injuries, you know, because I've seen a number of really nasty injuries at the professional level, some which are very high profile, which you guys have probably seen out on social media lately, you know, but I think it ends up with people trying to use too much weight, trying to do things that the body's not designed to do, you know, and you know, just basically cheating on the form and that kind of thing. I know that a lot of our listeners out there are tuning in, and they probably want to know what you do in order to develop yourself. If they're trying to gain weight, if they're trying to put on muscle, you know, and obviously not everybody's at the Olympian level like you are, what are just some of the basic things that you can tell them? I mean, just, you know, from a 50,000 foot view about the training and the nutrition. I mean, if you had to like summarize it in a minute or less, what would you tell them to do?
I would say eat in a way that is conducive to your goal. If you're trying to gain weight, you need to be in the caloric surplus with at least a gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. If you're trying to lose weight, it's very dependent, honestly. There's no blanket answer for that.
But for gaining weight, it's A, taking in more calories than you're burning, and B, making sure that you're getting enough protein. Is that accurate?
And carbs, yeah, just making sure you're getting enough nutrition for your body. You know, like I said, everyone's different. I operate, you know, on 800 to 1,000 grams of carbs a day, and I'm not diabetic and stay lean. Other people would become diabetic and obese in 3 months eating like that. It's just very dependent on the person, for sure, so I don't want to give blanket advice.
Okay.
But, yeah, so moving on, how's the traffic coming along, guys?
We're good, but just go ahead and make sure we remind Instagram that if they have questions to direct them over to YouTube.
Yeah, so anyone that's watching on my Instagram account, which I realize is probably a lot of y'all, the only way that we're going to be able to see and answer your questions is if you go and join the YouTube Live. That is what we're monitoring, and that is what we'll be answering questions off of. If you need the link for that YouTube Live, go watch my story. I have a swipe up link, and you can go join that way. We really would love to see all your questions. Unfortunately, the only platform we're monitoring is the YouTube Live. So make sure you head that way if you want to actually ask questions and interact.
Very good. Okay. So we talked about the nutritional part of it, you know, as far as, you know, the type of training that they should engage in for, you know, gaining weight. I mean, you know, just again, I understand that you could talk for hours about that. I'm just saying,
the training's a lot less, you know, specific than the nutrition, in my opinion.
Right.
You know, I can give some blanket advice in terms of the training. And, you know, the training is you need to find exercises that agree with your body. You need to find exercises that don't give you pain and that you can feel good about progressing and enjoy doing. Mm-hmm. And then you need to just progress the exercises. You know, if you go on my my YouTube. If you go on YouTube, you can at this point find like my entire split, the push, pull, arms, legs split, the old bro split I used to train on, and you can get an idea of how we structure things and the exercises that I like to use. But the most important thing is to train in a way that A, you recover from. You don't want to be training things when they're still sore, when you're feeling all beat to hell. And then B, you need to train in a way that you're seeing measurable progress each time you lift. Like I said, the way I specifically train might not be for everybody, but you need to be able to quantify your progress somehow if you want to achieve success in the long term.
So consistency and something that's uniform from workout to workout.
Correct.
Good.
In my opinion.
Okay.
So we've got a question from Jason Newman who asks, when you hit that last crucial rep, the one that means the most, what thoughts are going through your head?
So the question was, if y'all didn't hear, what is going through my head on that last like crucial rep on like a big top set? And honestly, during the set, my mind is kind of blank. Before the set, I'm going through all the cues in my head that I want to keep in mind, the number that I need to hit, and then go for it. During the set, I've always kind of likened it, this is kind of a weird thing for me, but I don't know, all of y'all out there have made a game out of holding your breath, and when your lungs start burning and you just want to start like you literally want to scream for air, that's what those last couple reps feel like to me. Even though I'm breathing, it's one of those things, so just make your skin crawl, painful. You want it to stop. You just got to kind of focus and go through it. So that's what it's like for me, at least.
Yeah, now you don't hold your breath on that last rep.
I create thoracic pressure for every rep.
Okay.
So
you do hold your breath.
Breathing. Yes.
Okay, but controlled breathing.
Controlled breath holding.
Okay, controlled breath holding. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I do that in the pool. I don't have to push myself quite that hard anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You did at one point.
Yeah, I did at one point. That is for sure. You got to be able to push through the through the pain barrier. What else do we got?
Lee, speaking of that, the question from Raider is, Lee, back in the day, what was your off-season / on-season diet like? How many calories did you eat? Did you use macro breakdown or just count calories?
I've always started, and I still do the same thing now, and I've always done this just historically. Whether I'm off season and trying to gain muscle, or whether I'm pre-contest, I always have the required amount of protein in each meal. So I start a meal by building it with protein. So it'll have 30 to 40 grams of protein, whether it's chicken or fish or a protein powder or egg whites or what have you. But I'll start with that, and then I'll have a fair portion of complex carbohydrates, typically rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, oatmeal, cream of rice, and then I'm not shy with the fats. Avocados, seeds, nuts, fish oil, those kind of things. Those tend to be cut down as I get closer to a competition, but the idea is always, when you're trying to gain weight, to get more calories than you're burning, and number two, get enough protein to support that muscle growth. When you're trying to drop body fat, what you want to do is you want to just cut back the calories that are responsible for the fuel, which are the carbohydrates and the fat. You just slightly cut those back from week to week, but maintaining your protein intake the same. It's really quite simple.
So Hunter,
Yep.
Vincent Morgan asks, what is your plan for the year?
So my plan for the year, touched on it at the beginning of this. If you're just joining us, though, my plan for the year is I am 13 weeks out from the Chicago Pro. That is the only plan right now. So planning on going there and handling business, and if not, we'll go from there.
So Art Good asks, any thoughts for an older person wanting to get started in bodybuilding? I am 47 and new to the gym.
You want to handle this?
Sure. Why'd you look at me when he said
Those
47?
are your people.
I love bodybuilders of all ages. Okay, so let's talk about that. 47 years old, I'm assuming that you're deconditioned and haven't worked out before. First thing you need to do is make sure that you get a good idea of your health. So if you haven't been to your cardiologist and gotten checked up, start by doing that. Make sure that you don't have any underlying health risks that you don't know about. Okay, assuming that you got a clean bill of health, then what I would do is I would just get into the gym and perhaps for the first couple months just go in for three days a week and just do a a circuit. Basically, a circuit training where you do 1 or 2 sets per body part, and you just kind of rest about a minute and a half in between sets, and just go from station to station, and just training the whole body. After that, you can get into a split routine where you can do your push training, which is your chest, your shoulders, and your triceps. On one day, your back and biceps. On another day, and then on a third day, legs. And typically what you'll do is you'll train 3 days in a row, splitting the body like that, and then take a day off. Depending on how much recovery you need, you could even take a second day off if you need to. And on those days off, you can do cardio. You can do cardio on any one of those days, and it's good for your heart. But you can do cardio on the off days. So one of the rules of thumb that I have, and especially as we get older, is that you need to get some activity every day. That's really important. So just move your blood every day.
Awesome. And a good follow-up question to that is from Ed Garcia, who asks you, Lee, how your training has evolved over the years.
Incidentally, Ed, my training is very similar to how it was even 30 years ago. I've always done a push-pull type of routine. In fact, I trained with Hunter and his partner several months ago, and they were talking about the push-pull routine and how everything that is old is new again. I've done push-pull for 40 years. So it's literally chest, shoulders, and triceps, the push muscles on one day, back and biceps, the pull muscles on another day, legs on their own day. 3 different workouts. And so still do that routine. Typically, I will train every day. If not with weights, I'll do cardio.
And this is a good question for the two of you. How many working sets do you do per muscle group?
Dependent on the muscle group. Like I said, bigger muscle groups, back, legs, chest, typically 4 to 6 working sets per session. But it's I always tell people, don't get stuck in a vacuum of thinking about what other people are doing, because I'd say for the last 6 months, half the time that I've trained quads, I'll do 1 set on the hack and then walk out of the gym after. Granted, I did like my calves and like my adductors and all that stuff before, but I'll by the time I get to my quads, I'll warm my knees up and I will go to Mars on the hack squat for 1 set and then leave the gym. And I have some of the best legs in the world. So it really is just dependent upon yourself. You need to do, and this is going to sound really funny, but you need to do the bare minimum to cause a growth response. Because you do the bare minimum to cause a growth response, that means your body has the bare minimum to recover from, and you'll be able to come back and train the body part as soon as possible. So that's what I think of whenever I think of working sets. If you're able to achieve a sore muscle, a taxed muscle, and to progress your training, progress your lifts, which means you're adding tissue with 1 set, then more power to you. If it takes 3 or 4, there you go. But if you're doing 6 or 7 and you're consistently feeling beat up and you're not progressing, peel it back a little bit. What I'm getting at is just pay attention to your body and realize it's not one size fits all, for sure.
A fun addition to that is, how many all-time PRs did you hit this offseason?
How many push-pull arms, legs training cycles did I have this offseason? I'm just kidding. But in all reality, I very regularly progressed all of my lifts this off season, and I have never been stronger than I am right now in this past off season. So basically, every time I set a PR this off season, it was a lifetime PR. So.
Okay, great. So Lee, Mark Donahue asks, is it harder to gain mass over 50?
How to gain mass over 50?
Or is it harder?
It is harder to gain muscle size as you get older. There's no doubt about that. But the basics still apply. Which is that you want to overload the muscle, but you don't want to overtrain the muscle. What I have found as I've gotten older is that it's too easy to overtrain. If I do too many sets, and I push myself for overload and go to failure on too many sets, then I find it harder to recover, and it takes me more days to recover. So what I would say is that after your warm-up, proceed to get up to your training weight as soon as you can. Then do 2 or 3 sets of sets that are stimulating sets. Where you go to just to where you fail, and then and then back off. So what does that look like? That typically looks like 6 to 8 sets per body part, where you're talking about the arms, like the biceps or the triceps, 8 sets on shoulders, 8 to 10 sets on the chest. Back is different because I just break it up into 3 or 4 different regions, and I'll do 4 to 6 sets for each one of those regions. So the back training might be as high as 12 to 14 sets, but again, it's just for different areas. You have your spinal erectors, you got your traps, you got your lats, and etc. Hope that helps.
So like I said, it's not one size fits all, because I would need a wheelchair if I did 12 working sets for back. So case in point, it's very dependent on yourself. That's what we're getting at. For those of y'all just joining us on Labrada's Instagram or my personal Instagram, we are doing a question and answer, but we are not answering questions off of Instagram. If you want to have your question answered, go to my story, and there is a swipe up link to the YouTube Live that we're currently doing. Those are the questions that we're moderating, and those are the questions that are getting asked to Lee and I. So if you want to ask a question, be sure to head over there.
So, good question for the two of you. Charlie asks, how long are you generally sore for?
So that's a good question. I promise I'm not going to sound like a broken record, but it's another one of those things that's dependent. It's definitely on contest prep as we get closer to the show. It's more and more noticeable that, I'll stay truly sore for, 2 to 3 days, maybe even 4. I'm never actually sore, though, when it's time to train again. I do have my volume regulated well enough to where it's time to train. I'm good. That being said, in the off season when the calories are super high and I'm not doing cardio and, I'm in a, a more relaxed body state, I'll be sore maybe for a day or 2, but, I'll have a tired, tight feeling for another day or 2 after that, so.
And then what is your favorite workout music? This goes for both of you.
My favorite workout music typically
Plug
is...
yourself.
Excuse me?
Plug yourself.
He said plug myself. I'm a guitarist. I do have an album out, Labrada Band. Check it out. On Spotify and on IG. Oh, you told me to. Okay. But typically, typically hard rock, I left him hanging. He doesn't like that. Okay. All right. What about you, Hunter? What do you like to train to?
I'm a metalhead. I like metal of all kinds to train to. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, no Taylor Swift, right?
I mean, I have trained to Taylor Swift before. I did have a Lady Gaga period in high school. So everything.
But you didn't make very good gains during the Lady Gaga phase, did you?
I did.
Okay. Maybe you should try that again.
Maybe if you hear Lady Gaga blasting in here one day, you'll know Lee's office is right up there.
So, here's a fun Pro Series question. What supplements do you guys use?
Oh, Lord.
So let me ask you this. Let me take that question right there in terms of supplements. Let's talk about before the workout.
Mm-hmm.
What do you like to take before the workout? And then we can segue to during the workout and then after the workout.
I see what you're doing here.
You do. Okay, I'm setting you up.
Almost
Did you like that?
A special 3-part system.
Look at that. That's how strong I am. It's like Aikido. I can off-kilter him with just the slightest move.
We just bent a chair in live television. That's awesome.
Did you really just bend that chair?
Yeah, bent it.
Come on, dude. You cannot have gained that much weight.
It's okay. We're okay. It's bent a little.
It's like putting an elephant on one of those little things in the circus.
Okay, but anyways, to talk about what we like supplement-wise, let's talk about what we do around the workout window.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we have some supplements here that you use around the workout window. So whenever I think about pre-workout, the very first thing that I'm going to tell myself and anyone out there is the sole purpose of a pre-workout is not to make you feel like you need to be scraped off of the ceiling because you're so stimulated. That might be shocking for some of y'all, but that's not a good thing. Whenever you put yourself into that high of a state of stimulus, your body's in a very stressed state. You don't want it to be in that state. So minimal stimulants, none if possible would be best. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I don't take stimulants though. So minimal stimulants is what I look for in a pre-workout first and foremost, because while they do give you a pick-me-up, I do feel like they negatively affect performance beyond a certain point. The second thing that I'm going to look for in a pre-workout is something that is going to give me endurance during my session and a great pump, right?
Right.
I'm just kind of going down the list here. Outside of a great pump and, boosting my endurance, I might look for something that's going to keep me hydrated while I train, because I sweat a lot while I train, right?
That's right.
So that's what I look for in, my pre-workout supplementation. What do I look for in an intra-workout supplement? I look for something that's going to replace the electrolytes that I'm sweating out. I look for something that's going to be able to replace the glycogen that I'm burning while I train rapidly. And most importantly, I am looking for something that's not going to sit in my stomach like a brick and make me throw up while I train.
That is really important, man. If any of you guys have ever had one of these sports drinks and slugged that on an empty stomach, it just sits there, and it's because the concentration of that sugar and the ratio that it is in there with the fluid is so great that it can't go through the wall of your intestine, and so you end up feeling bloated. So that's what you don't want.
Correct. So I don't want something sitting in my stomach like a brick. What do I want when I finish training? I want to immediately replenish whatever I burnt up when I was training, and then I want to jump start the building process, because at the end of the day, all that we were doing when we were training is destroying muscle tissue. We're doing it on a very microscopic level, but we are destroying muscle tissue, and your body has to repair it. That repairing is the muscular growth you're after in the gym. So the better we are able to repair and the quicker we are able to repair it, the faster we will grow, the bigger we'll get. So that's what I look for in a post-workout environment. So, there's very much so, I call it a peri-workout, nutrition.
Peri-workout.
Your pre-workout, your intra-workout, and your post-workout nutrition. Right. And even if you want to talk about it, the meal you have after your post-workout shake.
Right.
So
at least 3 stages.
At least 3 stages. In my mind, it's 4 for sure, because there's no replacement for whole foods after you train. You need to get the menu as soon as possible.
That's right. You got the meal.
Me being the way I am, and like a lot of people that I know, though, they can't really eat a huge-ass meal immediately when they get done training.
Right.
So they need something, but they need to get the food in them as soon as possible after. So in my mind, it's the pre, intra, post, and then that meal right after.
Take advantage of that anabolic window right after the workout, to get those muscles recovering, and then as soon as your stomach settles down after the workout, then you have your meal.
All right, guys. So we are about to actually delve into the 3 products of the Pro Series. I'm sure y'all have been staring at them, waiting for us to talk about them, hopefully, right? That means we're doing our job. The Pump, Intra, and Hydro. They're going to be our pre-workout, our intra-workout, and our post-workout nutrition we were just talking about. But before we talk about the products, I want to give you a chance to win them. So we decided upon our giveaway format. We decided we were going to reward those that came and joined us live today for this reveal. So those of you that are tuned in on YouTube, so all of y'all over here, the Instagram peoples, if you want to be eligible for this giveaway, please go to my story, find the swipe up for the YouTube Live, and go join the YouTube Live so you can be eligible for the giveaway. I'm going to give y'all like 30 seconds maybe. But anyways, so what we're going to do for this giveaway is we are going to do a little bit of bodybuilding trivia. I have a question in mind for this first giveaway. It has to do with his career. So if you want to, start doing some research or whatever you want to say.
I shouldn't blurt out the answer, right?
No, don't blurt out the answer. You already have enough of this.
Okay.
You got a whole warehouse full.
Okay.
Come on, guy. Leave some for the people.
All right.
Okay. All right. So anyways, Instagram. Hopefully you are over to YouTube by now. But we're going to do a giveaway for all 3 of the supplements and the experience box that they come in, the limited edition box. The question is, and it's going to be the first person to type it in correctly, what was the year and placing of Lee's first Olympia?
Boy, I can see people out there Googling like really, really fast.
Whoever's good on Google is probably about to get a supplement box.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. So before we go any further, while you guys are out there looking for the answer to that, let me encourage you to go check out our website. It's live as of today. It's actually live right now, and it's LabradaProSeries.com. Go check it out. You're going to see videos there. You're going to have information on the product and why it was developed for you and how it can help you.
Yep. So, all right, guys. So, do we have a winner?
I'm not sure we have a winner yet. We have almost, I don't even think we've gotten the same answer twice, which is ridiculous. One question I wanted to do just as a follow-up to your discussion of what you're looking for in a supplement and what you value. What have you done you've had the opportunity to build your own line, which, you could make your perfect product. How did you make these the products that meet your needs as an elite bodybuilder?
Let's talk a little bit how the line came to be.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the easiest way to say how we made the products is we knew what we wanted to end up at, and worked back from there on ways to make it possible and ways to make it happen. This is a really exciting product for us from the fact that it is, in my opinion, a Lamborghini. I've been saying this a couple times now. A Lamborghini at a Honda at an Acura price, if that makes sense. It's not going to be the cheapest product out there, but it is going to be the most effective product out there. And I really can say that. We've done a lot of time and research behind these. Not so much. I'll say this: we spent a lot of time R&Ding these products, but the amount of time that I personally have spent R&Ding some of these ingredients per se, from the standpoint that I was using 2 and 3 supplements combined to make a pre-workout, and then 2 different ones combined to make an intra. I really do believe in all of the individualized ingredients in these products. I very much so had a checklist for both the pre and the intra when we started this, and we hit all of those check boxes, and then we actually ended up with some really, really cool patented additional ingredients that I even hadn't heard of. So the biggest product for me in terms of one that I'm excited about for y'all to try, because I know that y'all will feel a difference the first time that y'all try it, is the pump. So the pump is definitely the product that whenever I say I was using 2 or 3 different people's products, that this is what I'm talking about. It was one of those things I'd run into. Okay, I really like the stimulant profile on this one, and it's got the beta-alanine that I want, and it's got the citrulline that I want, but it has none of the nitrates that I want, and it has no taurine or this or that. So once again, I'm buying 2 or 3, because at one point I was taking a company's fat burner and then 2 different pump products, one from each different company, and taking all 3 of them for my pre-workout. So I don't have to do that anymore. So going down the list on pump, some of the standouts on it is it is stim free. I wanted to make it stim free because it is very easy to add stimulants to your pre-workout, whether it be coffee, energy drink, actual caffeine tablets, fat burners, whatever you have it. But it really is one of those things that if you can help it, it's good not to take the stimulants, especially if you train later in the day, because the sooner you're able to get your body to calm down, the sooner you're able to recover. Your body can't recover when it's in that state of fight or flight from being all stimmed out and after training hard. So it's a little snippet, side note for everyone listening out there. After you're done training, the calmer you get yourself and the more relaxed you get yourself quicker, the better off you'll be. So that's why we decided not to include stimulants in it. But, going down the list, I'd spoken about the nitrates that I really like. So we have 1.5 grams of the betaine nitrate in there, which is, one of my favorite pump ingredients in there. And then in addition to that, we have the citrulline and leucine and agmatine sulfate, betaine anhydrous, and the last ingredient that I think is a very cool ingredient is called a meal peptide. It's a casein protein peptide that actually mimics the behavior of ACE inhibitors. What are ACE inhibitors? They actually lower your blood pressure by relaxing smooth muscle tissue, correct?
The endothelial cells,
in
the blood
which
vessels.
your veins are made out of, and your blood vessels are made out of. So, obviously, we won't say this, but there's been some very interesting research that's been done by third parties that have shown the levels of efficacy to be equal to actual prescription ACE inhibitors. So it's a very cool ingredient that I'm really excited about.
What it translates to is that what you're getting in all of these products, and including the pump, is an efficacious dose, a dose that has been shown in a lab environment and a clinical environment to be the dose necessary to elicit the response that you're after. In the case of the pump, it is just that. You get a massive flow of blood to the target tissues, more so than any other pre-workout that you can find on the market. And this is not an inexpensive thing to do. As Hunter mentioned earlier, you have these ingredients. These ingredients are very efficacious, but they're expensive when they're supplied in the amount that is necessary to elicit the effect that they found in the studies. So it's a Lamborghini. This is literally the best product out on the market today. We feel that it is. It's the culmination of over 50 years of combined professional bodybuilding experience and 25 years of R&D that we've had at Labrada Nutrition, this line is our way of working with the serious bodybuilder, the serious athlete, and helping them to reach their goals. Hunter, do you want to talk a little bit about the Intra?
One more little snippet on the pump, something to really pay attention to is the word clinical dosing or efficacious dosings thrown around a lot these days.
Sure.
Hopefully at this point you all know what it means. Long story short, it means the amounts put in there were the amounts used in the human, not rat studies or placebo, whatever it is, the human studies to show an effective response. That being said, once again, it's something that I feel has kind of fallen prey to the marketing in our industry. And even though pre-workout formulas will be clinically dosed and they will be advertised as clinically dosed and this, that, and another, if you turn them around, it'll say 1 scoop and 2 scoops on the nutrition facts. And the 1 scoop serving size is literally half of everything, while the 2 scoop is a full efficacious dose.
Right.
Well, guess what happens?
so
Guess
look-
what happens if you take the full dose? Your 20 or 25 serving pre-workout just became a 10 or a 12 serving pre-workout. So that's something to keep in mind, when comparing, pre-workouts and stuff. Compare apples to apples on the serving sizes and the amounts of actives that you get. That's something that I
That's right.
really was wowed
That's-
by
that's-
whenever I was doing my market research for
Yeah,
this
that's
product.
a bit deceptive.
Yeah, it is a little bit deceptive.
Yeah.
Hey, Lee,
Yes.
what year was your first Olympia and what did you place?
So my first Mr. Olympia was in 1987 in Gothenburg, Sweden, and I took 3rd place behind Lee Haney and Rich Gaspari.
Awesome. Well, so then our giveaway winner is Mr. Angel Solis. Was the first person to answer 3rd place in 1987.
Oh, that's not fair. He was 4th place. Just kidding.
So Angel, if you are still watching, what I think we'll have you do is probably message the Labrada Nutrition Instagram page, and we can coordinate with you about where to send everything. Does that sound about right to you guys?
Sounds great.
Cool. All right. Didn't mean to cut you off there.
Congratulations,
but
Angel.
we've had a ton of answers, so I wanted to go ahead and get that one answered.
Okay. Shall we move on to the Intra?
Yes, we shall.
Okay.
All right, guys. Moving on to the second product in the Pro Series lineup. We talked about the different parts of your workout nutrition. Intra-Workout is definitely one of those products and one of those windows in your workout that cannot make or break your workout, but can definitely drastically improve it or make it drastically worse. We kind of covered, what can make it drastically worse, and this is, gonna maybe hurt some feelings out there, but it is not the most beneficial thing to do while you're training to be eating a bunch of high fructose corn syrup, sour shit,
Sports drinks.
candy bars, XYZ, this, that, and another. While they are sugars, like I said, most of the time it's high fructose corn syrup, which is absolutely terrible for you. Your body doesn't break it down well, and it's just going to cause a negative response in your body. So first and foremost, you want to, in the intra-workout environment, if you're going to take one and it's going to contain carbs, you want to have a carb source that gets assimilated quickly, right?
That's exactly right. And not all carb sources are created equal, right?
No, correct. So the carb source that we chose for the intra-workout is highly branched cyclic dextrin. It is my personal favorite from the standpoint of digestibility, for one. I feel like I've been a lab rat for studies on it. I've been drinking like 150 grams of it a day for like the last 5 or 6 years under various different companies' labels. But yeah, so I've been a case study in highly branched cyclic dextrin. I personally love it. It digests well. The cool thing about it is it's one of the very few carbohydrates that will actually begin assimilating into your body and hit the bloodstream before it even leaves your stomach. It really can be pulled. It really is a small enough molecule that it really gets into your bloodstream borderline immediately. So that's why we chose the highly branched cyclic dextrin for that. We also talked about the fact that when you're training, you're A, sweating, B, exerting yourself. So we need what? We need endurance and we need to replenish the electrolytes.
That's right.
We introduced a clinical dose, 3.2 grams of beta-alanine to the intra-workout. I know that might sound a little weird to people, thinking, I thought the beta-alanine was supposed to be in a pre-workout. You could be correct, but drinking your intra-workout in the manner that you're supposed to drink it, i.e. starting to sip it 10 to 15 minutes before you train and having it done by 2/3 of the way through your workout, It's an ingredient that's assimilated incredibly quick, and it's an ingredient that's depleted quickly. So by drinking it during your workout, I feel it's more beneficial. That's why it's there. If anyone has a question as to why we put the beta-alanine in the intra-workout instead of the pre-workout. Moving on, like you said, we sweat a lot. We want to replace the electrolytes. We put both electrolytes and coconut powder in there for the electrolytes and some extra carbohydrates. And then also put in 5 grams of amino acids, including what's called Physique amino acids, which is a very cool proprietary ingredient from the standpoint that it is amino acids modeled directly after the amino acid profile of skeletal muscle. So if we're breaking down skeletal muscle tissue while we're training, it seems logic would say that if you supply it, it's going to be used. In addition to what logic says, there's also a lot of really promising studies behind the ingredient that says it does that. So
that's right. These are all patented ingredients with clinical research behind them.
Definitely. So that is the intra-workout.
Now let me ask you this before we move on. What can the viewer expect to feel as they drink the intra-workout during their workout?
So, like I said, out of all 3 products, the one that you're going to feel and be like, oh, wow, the first time that you take it is going to be the pump.
Okay.
That being said, moving on down the line with the Intra, in my opinion, is one of those products that you would notice a difference that if you took it for 3 or 4 days while you were training and then stopped. And then you went back and trained the next day without it, because I feel like whenever you train and whenever you're using it, you're getting that little endurance boost from the beta-alanine. You're getting the little bit of carb pick-me-up from the highly branched citric dextrin, and then the other host of supporting ingredients in there really does give you that little bit of extra, but it's not one of those things that you're going to be like the first time you use it,
sure.
If that makes sense.
And your diet is very, very highly refined and a very scientific approach. Not everybody has as good a diet as you do. And I know there's a lot of guys that, when they work their 9 to 5s, they get off work, they go to the gym. Now they can go to the gym and they go to the gym and they work out and they might be dragging, and this is something that will definitely help you if you're dragging. It'll help you power through your workout.
Definitely. Last thing to mention about this, I mentioned about how it had the amino acids in there, including the Physique ones. It actually has enough in there to where it has 3.5 grams of leucine, which is the studied amount of leucine to activate the mTOR pathway, which is the pathway which muscle protein synthesis is signaled, which is a fancy way of saying it's responsible for signaling muscle growth.
Right. It triggers
muscle growth.
Triggers muscle growth. The 3+ grams of leucine. So that's very, very important.
All right, guys, getting to the last one. This one's a personal favorite of mine. Definitely have caused some controversy in the last month or two with it. It's the Hydro. It is the 100% hydrolyzed whey protein isolate that we came with a chocolate and a vanilla flavor. Couple things to keep in mind with this product. One, it's, to my knowledge, the only 100% hydrolyzed whey protein on the market right now.
That's right.
If you look at other companies' hydrolyzed products, while it does contain hydrolyzed whey isolate in there, it also contains normal whey isolate in there. While they're both premium ingredients, I feel it's a little misleading to call it hydrolyzed whey protein when it's indeed a blend.
Exactly.
Ours is not a blend. It is 100% hydrolyzed whey protein and nothing else.
That's right. Which is, incidentally, the fastest absorbed protein that is available. It's literally almost broken down into peptides, di and tripeptides, that gets absorbed super fast so that it can jumpstart the recovery process after the workout.
And because whey isolate, especially hydrolyzed whey isolate, is incredibly high in glutamic acid and glutamine, you're actually receiving a clinical dose of hydrolyzed glutamine and glutamic acid whenever you consume the product. Second thing to keep in mind with the product is the scoop size that we selected is actually gives you 30 grams worth of protein. So that's something to keep in mind when looking at the serving sizes and everything like that. That's something that I wanted because I take in 60 grams of protein when I get done training, and I know a lot of bigger people do, and for a lot of smaller people, both females and smaller males, 30 grams of protein from an isolate's ideal post-training.
Right.
60 grams is not necessary. That's me at 270 pounds speaking. So
now, Hunter, why would anybody that's watching us today want to take the Hydro instead of straight up whey protein or whey protein isolate?
Okay, so those of you out there that consume whey protein, or for those of you out there that choose not to consume whey protein because in the past it's absolutely torn up your stomach, chances are the reason it's absolutely torn up your stomach is due to the fact that it's very high in milk proteins, which contain a lot of lactose. Put it bluntly, not a lot of people were made to handle lactose well, and milk proteins especially contain a lot of lactose. As you get more and more and more refined, when you go from your milk protein concentrate to your milk protein isolate to your whey protein concentrate to your whey protein isolate, all the way to the very tippity top of your hydrolyzed whey isolate, there's less and less and less and less lactose.
Right.
Which is very cool about this product is I truly feel it's suitable for those that are lactose intolerant. It is not going to cause any issues with digestibility. And I spoke about how I've kind of caused some controversy with this product in the last couple months. I've been consuming 8 scoops a day right now. I've been eating 280 grams a day of protein from this. And, a lot of people are like freaking out about it. But, at the end of the day, like I said, because of the fact that it's hydrolyzed isolate, there is no lactose in it. It's not causing me digestive issues. It's not causing me any, distress. I'm not gassy. It's digesting very well. And to put it bluntly, the amount of research behind whey protein isolate being one of the most, complete and anabolic protein sources there are, it's abundant. So while I hear people out there saying whole food is best, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you about whole food being best. The reason that I shared the story of me eating, 8 scoops a day is to show you in a very extreme abnormal case, just how digestible the protein is.
And let me just add something to that. I'm a big believer in whole food, and I believe that supplements are just that. They're supplements to a whole food diet, right? So we can all agree on that. Now, that being said, the ability for your body to absorb a protein is to a large extent also relying on the particle size. So let's say that you eat a piece of chicken or fish, you have to chew that up, and then depending on how well you break that up, then mechanically the surface area that protein has when it hits the gastric juices in your stomach, that's going to determine how well, to an extent, it's going to determine how well digested it is. So the smaller the particle size, the better. That's why you want to consume a high quality protein powder such as this Hydro right after the workout, because the surface area it's very, very fine. It's already down into a peptide form. You get very fast absorption, and those peptides go to work on giving you that muscle recovery that you need right after the workout.
Good rundowns on the products. I think answer some more questions.
Yeah,
got a bunch rolling.
Definitely. Let's answer
we got
some more
actually
questions.
a healthy backlog. So Matt Alley asks, question for each of you. Do you believe in carb rotation, e.g. 2 days low, 1 day high, or do you maintain X amount of carbs when dieting down for a show and have a cheat day once a week?
Let me answer that first, only because mine is very simple, and then I'm going to turn it over to you. So mine is very straight line. I don't do carb rotation. I just use the same amount of carbohydrates every day, and then I just gradually reduce that, but never below 200 grams before a show. Hunter, take it away.
Okay, so yeah, you asking that, definitely do believe in manipulating carbohydrates. It's definitely, and I know I sound like a broken record, person dependent. Me, for example, in the off season, I eat the same amount of carbs every single day because I am trying to grow, and doing so I don't put on any body fat. Working back from there, though, in the off-season environment, I believe in keeping the carbohydrate intake as high as possible. If it needs to be lowered, I do believe in lowering it on your easier training days and your off days first before you pull it back systemically across the board. At the end of the day, you got to remember that carbs are fuel. So, if you do have a problem with body fat, if you are trying to get leaner, if you are trying to cut, the first places that you need to think about taking the fuel from are the times that you don't need it, i.e. your off days, i.e. your 6th meal at night, stuff like that.
Sure.
So, as far as actual carb cycling goes, yes, it is done. Yes, I believe it's the best way to get lean. That being said, it's very dependent upon your body and how quick your body depletes and how your metabolism responds to having large amounts of food dumped on it. Because I know if you asked, do you just go low all week and then have one big cheat? Well, that might work really well for someone, like myself. I can, go low for 3 days and be so flat I can eat for 2 days afterwards. And, it's just one of those things, one meal isn't going to do it once you get to a certain size. So it really is just dependent upon your body and how you handle things. But if you are trying to get lean and you are trying to cut, whether it be for a show or just for summer or whatever, I definitely would encourage you to look at manipulating your carbs and not just cutting them down straight across the board, because I feel like you'll lose faster by manipulating them, like on your off days and easier days first, and then B, you'll keep gym performance higher, which is, at the end of the day, the most important thing, because you're burning the most calories while you're training with weights, and you are preserving the muscle tissue that you have when you're weight training. So
I told you my answer would be easier. Well done.
A follow-up question from him is,
dude,
I think Hunter almost went off the stool there.
Okay, I'm awake.
We almost had a little comic relief here. For those of you that are joining us, we're taking all of your questions on our YouTube Live, so be sure to bring your questions to us now on the Labrada YouTube channel. And also check out the LabradaProSeries.com website, where you'll find more information about the new product launch that we have on this line of professional bodybuilding supplements we've developed just for you.
So, John Michael Posada asks, what motivates you to win each day?
What was the question?
What motivates me to win each day? Can't drop F-bombs on Labrada's Instagram,
No,
so I
don't
won't
do that.
say what I normally say. But screw motivation. Learn to love discipline. What do I mean by that? Motivation is very fleeting. All the time, it's like if you rely on some song or some YouTube video or, having a really awesome day or, this or that to be the catalyst for you to go and handle your business, you're not going to be successful. You fall into the habit of handling things regardless of, when they need to be handled, and just taking care of shit when it needs to be taken care of, and you fall in love with that process. Like I said, learn to love discipline. At the end of the day, you'll become much more fulfilled by it, because you don't have to be motivated to feel good about yourself. As long as you check your boxes and you take care of what you needed to take care of during the day, you're going to feel disciplined. You're going to feel motivated. And, the motivation will come as a result of that discipline. But simply relying on motivation to handle things is a recipe for disaster.
I would say that is exactly right. And the way that you learn to love discipline, the way that you develop discipline, is by developing habits that help you get closer to whatever goal it is that you have. If you see the reward, and especially if you see the reward often for whatever activity you're participating in, whether it's dieting or training, if you get that feedback and you can see yourself improving, whether it's putting an inch on your biceps, or whether it's dropping a half inch off your waist as you get ready for a show, or whether it's adding 10 pounds to a pressing movement, as long as you can see these rewards and you're being rewarded for the habit that you're engaging in, it becomes easier to develop that discipline that helps you get through these habits.
So, same man asks us, what do you do to assist with digestion? What helps your digestion?
What helps to assist digestion? Hunter, you want to take that one, or should I?
Yeah, I can take it.
Okay.
So digestion. First and foremost, make sure you're drinking enough water. Your body needs water to digest things. That's a big one that people forget about. Second thing to speak of when thinking about digestion is make sure you are not eating foods that don't agree with yourself. Me personally, I had been drinking a liter of egg whites a day for the last decade. And, enough people had finally told me that you should really stop that and see if your stomach gets better, because my stomach could be in shambles during the off season. And I always thought, okay, it's just because I'm eating so much food, because it'd always get better on prep, even though I was still drinking egg whites. Well, removed the egg whites, started drinking all the whey protein, and got the whole internet world upset. And, lo and behold, my stomach's better. So moral of the story is make sure you're not eating foods that don't disagree with yourself. If it's in the cards, the easiest way to do that is go get a food allergy test. Mm-hmm. They're very available these days. They're very accurate, and you'd be surprised what comes back on them.
I recently cut out bread because I want to cut all gluten out of my diet. And I'll tell you that it's made gluten. Well, yeah, gluten free. He's poking fun at me. You know, I don't think that everybody has a gluten allergy. I don't think everybody's celiac. I don't think everybody has a gluten sensitivity. But I will tell you that gluten damages those spaces that are responsible for allowing the food molecules and the amino acids and such to go through the gut wall. It loosens those up. And what happens? You got me. You stumped me.
Oh man,
you stumped me.
I thought he was gonna know. He honestly, shout out to this guy. He has more like random trivia and facts in his head than anyone I know. I figured he knew.
But
this wasn't saying.
But I will tell you this: you guys can look it up. There is a protein that is responsible for, and to a large extent, determining the size of the spaces in your intestinal wall through which the macromolecules go through. You know, to nourish your body. You know, and gluten actually loosens those up. The problem with gluten is that if it loosens those up enough, then stuff starts getting into your system. You start developing allergies and other things that are just strange. So anyway.
Okay, so moving on down the line, drink a lot of water. Don't eat foods that don't agree with your stomach. Next up, take digestive enzymes with some of your heavier meals. Once you eliminate any foods that are bugging your stomach, and once you ensure that your system's hydrated, if you're still experiencing digestive issues, the issue probably lies in the fact that your stomach is not producing enough acids to break down the food properly. So by introducing digestive enzymes with especially some of your heavier animal protein meals, like ones that are really high in meat and carbs, you will definitely help your digestion out a lot as well.
100%. That's something I've been doing since I was a teenager. You know, is I will actually supplement with digestive enzymes at 1 or 2 meals every day. And again, as Hunter mentioned, the reason for that, it's not what you eat, it's what you absorb. And if your body has a hard time breaking it down, guys, let's face it, you know, as bodybuilders, we're eating 4, 5, 6 times a day or more, you know, and so it really, really taxes and overloads your digestive system. So if you're taking betaine hydrochloride, you know, with a heavy protein meal, or you're taking pancreatin digestive enzymes, you know, after a meal, those things are good for helping to break down that food and making it more absorbable.
Talks asks you, what is the most influential thing that Lee has told you in regards to the sport of bodybuilding?
He could probably write a book on that one.
The Leeism of all Leeisms. This is a tough one.
I could probably tell you.
No. Let me think about this for like a minute.
Think about running.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know. That was what I was probably going to go with. Yeah. Bodybuilding's a marathon, not a sprint. That's what he was going to say. And it really is so true. You know, at this point, you know, he can tell you his, but I can tell you mine too. You know, we've both been doing it long enough to see that, you know, bodybuilding's not forever. It's definitely not easy on your health. There's a right and a wrong way to do things, and you pay the price for it when you don't do them right. You know, he can say that, and I can say that. So
that's right.
Yeah.
And you know, I heard it said the other day from a very good friend of mine that I competed with back in the 80s, and he told me that as a bodybuilder and a young bodybuilder, if you approach it as the young man needs to take care of the old man, okay, because one day, if you live long enough, you'll be an older man, okay? And so if you take care of your body now and you respect it, respect your joints and that type of thing, then you don't end up with the double hip replacement and the destroyed spinal vertebrae and so forth, so on later on when you get older. You know, so you have to train intelligently, you have to train heavy, but you got to keep that stress on the muscles. You got to respect your body. It's a marathon. It's not a race. Don't be so impatient to develop your body that you do things that put it in harm's way.
Yeah, you know, so like what he said, you know, it's, you know, he's talking about the lens of, you know, people that have been there, done that, and the complications and problems they deal with, you know, after they're done bodybuilding. You know, I unfortunately at this point have been, you know, privy to people, you know, my age falling victim to some of the downfalls of bodybuilding. And, you know, to all the younger kids out there, because I know a lot of them follow me, really do remember that it is a sprint. And, you know, I've always had to say it like this, you know, it's like, even if you don't care about your health, which you absolutely should, and bodybuilding is life or whatever it is, like you say, whenever you're young and dumb, you're going to be a better bodybuilder if you take your time with things, if you periodize things, if you give your body periods of rest. You're going to grow quicker and you're going to be better in the long term, speaking strictly from a bodybuilding standpoint. Now, when you factor in the health, it really is a no-brainer. So bodybuilding's a marathon, not a sprint.
Absolutely.
Logistical And guys, where will the Pro Series be shipped to or available to?
So the Pro Series will be available in the continental United States. It is direct to consumer only. So that means that we ship it right here at the Labrada Nutrition headquarters directly to you. And the only place that you can get it right now is by going to labradaproseries.com.
And guys, also, as of this morning, we have launched. So I'm going to do my best personally, and then we as a company are going to do our best to really highlight all of the people that we've brought on to help promote this brand. But at this point, we have launched. So keep an eye out for, the people that we've identified as athletes and their appropriate discount codes and stuff, because they are out there already, and you can purchase the product. So like he said, labradaproseries.com is where you can get it right now.
That's right.
Good question here. We have kind of a two-parter. We'll start with, I'll ask it all right now, and then we'll answer it in stride. Hunter, how often do you practice your posing routines and mandatories? Follow-up, Lee, do you help with building a routine or assist with feedback for Hunter and his posing? Which synergizes with another question that was asked in regards to the posing, but we cannot find
I'm sitting like that because I owe him music to start making a posing routine too still.
So I can do my part first. The short answer is this: is that I'm here to assist and to coach as needed. Hunter is a very good poser in his own right. I help to put together and help him to choreograph as needed whenever we have music selected for the show, and we work on it together.
Definitely. So yeah, like he said, he helps as much as I ask for, which is awesome because, at the end of the day, I don't think there's anyone better that could be teaching me how to pose. That being said, answering your actual question, how much do I practice posing? In the off season, typically not a lot unless I have a guest posing coming up, and then I'll get pretty consistent with it. Once prep starts, though, especially once I have to start sending fasted check-ins, I'll typically pose a round or two in the morning. I will pose after I train every single day, and then I'll be over at his house 2 days a week practicing the routine and then going through quarter turns and mandatories. This prep, though, is going to be a little different because with the spot I'm sitting at in terms of body fat right now and how much time we have left and everything, the first move that we're going to make is me actually just kind of going to the gym in the morning and doing some abs real quick and then posing for 15 or 20 minutes, I feel like it'd be a lot more beneficial to my bodybuilding, because A, it's cardio, but B, it gets me posing every day. So that's something new I'll be doing this prep. But, yeah.
The thing about posing, for those of you guys that are tuning in, is that it's very simple. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And I am actually very optimistic about the direction that the posing is heading in men's open bodybuilding. At this last Olympia, I saw a lot of pretty decent posing routines. So I like that the guys are paying attention to it, because to me, it's an art form. Why on earth would you spend 10 plus years killing yourself in the gym to develop a world-class body and then not put forth your best effort in a posing routine to show it off and display it to its best? So
I always tell people treat their posing like their cardio, nutrition, and training.
Yes,
you wouldn't skip your cardio, you wouldn't skip a meal, you wouldn't skip a training session. Why
That's
are
right.
you doing that pose?
That's
it
right.
Doesn't make any sense.
What's really good is that this is recorded so that I can play it back to him those times that he's wrestling, not wanting to come to posing practice, which is not very often.
One-off question here. How does the new protein mix in with cream of rice?
I can answer that one. He's the cream of rice
Apparently,
king.
I'm not the cream of rice party king.
No,
anymore.
you're the cream of rice party guy.
Go for it. You eat orange box. What are you talking about?
What do you mean oranch box? Oh yeah,
you're
the
gonna
orange
say you're
box
the cream of rice king, but you eat orange box?
I do. I eat cream of rice out of the orange box.
Come on.
What's wrong with that?
It's not Pride Foods.
Well,
Sean, you're the man.
I've only been doing it for a few months, and I love it. Go ahead. You're the king.
It mixes in awesome. It really does. So the chocolate flavor, we used a ton of Dutch cocoa in it, so it's got a very, very rich chocolate flavor to it. I really like it. I don't know how else to say it. I can't like stick up some through the computer screen and let you try it right now. All I can say is it is delicious and it does mix easily. The vanilla one has a melted vanilla ice cream flavor to it. Like, it's the best way to describe it for me. So both mix in very well. I like using the chocolate one. Intern actually, Haley, has showed us a pudding technique where we use like barely any water, and it makes really good pudding too, both chocolate and vanilla. So definitely a solid flavor profile for sure. Which shout out to the R&D team here. Hydrolyzed whey isolate does not taste good unflavored.
Typically,
and it's very thin.
Yeah, typically hydrolyzed whey, like plain hydrolyzed whey, unflavored, taste terrible. Why? Because it's broken down into peptides. Yeah, I mean and so it's almost like pre-digested.
So any hydrolyzed isolate that I had tasted prior to ours, I had always thought like, wow, it tastes like someone like
terrible.
Poured an inch of chocolate milk in the bottom of a cup and then filled the rest of it up with water.
It tastes rancid.
Yeah, it's just not
yeah,
very
but
good.
ours tastes absolutely delicious. I guarantee it. It is one of the most delicious protein powders you'll ever taste.
Danielle Cummings asks, how are these products for women?
These products were formulated for elite athletes, not elite men or elite women. They were formulated for those that need the most performance out of their bodies, male or female. We have a ton of incredible female athletes coming on to promote the line. Like I said, looking forward to sharing both the males and females that we brought on in the very, very, very near future.
Any tips for building muscle growth and muscle maturity faster as a student? Lee, this is also open to you.
Use that free cafeteria meal plan. Honestly, if you're in school, school is either a time that you can make the most progress of your life, or that you can just completely F off the fact that you have 4 years of like minimal responsibilities. Like, you're not going to have as much going on as once you're out of college, have a family, and you're working a full-time job. Let's put it that way. So varying degrees of people's college experiences. I understand some people have to work, some people don't. Some people are taking 20 hours a semester. Some people are on the 6-year plan. I get it. That being said, I really feel college is a time that you can really grow because, like I said, the stress levels are a little lower, and you do have the freedom from the fact that at the very least you aren't married with kids and a family yet. You do have time to train. It is just, you're taking care of yourself pretty much. So I experienced some of the best gains of my life in college. I was able to eat 6 times a day. I was able to train, and then I took care of my schoolwork. I kind of talked about how it's one of those times you can like really F off 4 years too, much more than your physique. Obviously it's the first time for, those of you listening out there that are in school or going off to school. It's the first time you're away from home, and, it really is one of those things you get there and, you can either take advantage of the fact that you're there or you can waste it. So, yeah.
Well said. It's important to make good use of that time.
So, Lee, Senpai Kells is asking what your thoughts were on Chris Bumstead's 2020 physique, and I guess more as just someone who people oftentimes look to when they think of a classic physique. How do you feel about the physiques that you're seeing on stage now?
I think that Chris did a very, very good job. He's got a great physique. He's got a great look and a very deserving Mr. Olympia.
1 year back progress was crazy.
Yeah, so
Shout out to Chris.
Yeah, he's done a great job. I love the fact that classic bodybuilding is making a resurgence, and I love the look of the class in its own right. It is different than the men's open bodybuilding, and equal amounts of respect to both. But definitely I love that classical look. It harkens back to the era of bodybuilding that we grew up in.
I gotta take a chance to say this right now on the wake of that. I get asked all the time why I don't do classic like my dad. And just to give you all some reference points.
Weight to height ratio.
To give you some reference, I'm 5'9". The very first show I ever did in 2016 where, in my mind, I looked like an absolute beanpole. I weighed 218 pounds, which is, over 20 pounds over my classic cutoff still. So That's why. That's why I don't do classic. I just wasn't built for it. Honestly, in my opinion, classic bodybuilding is the one that requires the most elite genetics, in my opinion, because not only do you have to have the crazy shaped muscle bellies and everything that we in the open have to have, but you have to have small joints, small hips, and wide clavicles to be successful in that division, in my opinion. Otherwise, to fill out and to look thick, you'll weigh too much. So.
Yeah, that's a good assessment. Kudos to those guys, and kudos to the Open as well.
Looking forward to having Terrence in town for the Labrada this year.
That's going to be great.
That'll be good.
Yeah, great poser too.
Speaking of Bumstead, Clockwork Orange asks, does Hunter have a rivalry with Ian?
I have a very friendly, healthy rivalry with Ian. Him and I have been nothing but respectful to each other from the jump. He's a great bodybuilder, so am I. Him and I will be going head-to-head, probably for the next 10 years. That being said, him and I have always kept it about bodybuilding. It's never become personal, and I fully intend on keeping it that way. And knowing him as a person, he's a great dude. I fully expect him to keep it that way, too. So that's where that's at.
I met Ian, and he is not only a great bodybuilder, but a great person as well.
Talking about Chris's coach, I guess it makes sense to ask now, Hunter, do you have a coach, and did Lee have a coach back in the day?
I can tell you that one real easy on my part. I did not have a coach back in the day. I did all of my own coaching. I basically did everything soup to nuts. From my diet to my training, to my posing. The coaching really came in the 90s. The guys started getting coaches.
So in my case, I do have a coach. Brian and I both started the Standard Training Systems together. It is our coaching company. I am coached under that banner. That being said, at the end of the day, Brian's got the final say with what we say, but the only reason that he is in that position is that I know he listens to what I have to say. I know he listens to my input, and we very much so developed a, back and forth, teamwork synergy. That in addition to the fact that I literally train with him every day and have been for the last 5 years, he knows my body, inside and out. And anyone who's actually competed knows that no matter how good a head you have on your shoulders, you are the last person that needs to be looking at yourself the last 3 or 4 weeks. So I trust him to do that in addition to Liv and Lee. And I really feel like I have a team behind me, and Brian's the one on the chalkboard. Yeah.
And you know what? On that note, I will tell you that I did rely on feedback from my training partner at the time, who was Craig the Surf, and my good friend and nutritionist Keith Klein on the dieting aspect. I knew what to do, and I knew how to diet and so forth, so on. But it helps to have a small circle of people around you that can provide feedback, and I think that's where it's at. But in terms of making all the major decisions on my physique, and I pretty much did that myself.
One question asked by Jackson Albrecht is a single best piece of advice for someone stepping on stage for the first time. Open up.
All right, guys. I get asked this question a lot when I do my Q&As. I give the same answer every single time because it really just it's the brass tacks facts of the matter, and that is when you're competing for the first time, remember that competing is a privilege. You are eating 6 meals a day. You are going to the gym once or twice a day. You are, in the case of girls, getting your hair and suit and makeup and all this. In the case of guys, you were, taking off of work and not having to do this or that. It is very much so a catered to you. You chose to do it. Experience, you're choosing to do it. You are going to be hungry. You are going to feel bad. You are going to be irritable. That is the facts of the event that you chose to do. So at the end of the day, I always tell people when they ask me that question, in addition to other things, like I can enjoy it, it is remember it's a privilege to compete. Represent, us being like the bodybuilding community well. Don't be the one that takes it out on everyone. Don't be the one whose, kids and spouse get to deal with an asshole for 16 weeks straight. If you can't handle it, find a different sport. If you're going to do this sport, you should know that it's a privilege and carry yourself accordingly.
So A number of really similar questions, so I'll kind of ask them as a collective. Does supplementation change as you age, and what do you recommend for people who
Does supplementation change
as you age? And how do you recommend to people who are in more of like the 55 to 60 plus bracket as far as supplementation?
So as we age, our digestive tracts age as well, and it's harder to break down and absorb food. So as we age, we actually have to be more strict in terms of watching what we eat, and not hurling dietary insults at the body, So whereas I could probably eat a pizza and drink an entire blender full of protein shake before going to sleep when I was 20 years old. If I did that now, I wouldn't eat for 3 days, and I wouldn't sleep for 3 days. So I couldn't handle it. So the important thing to remember as you get older, one, respect your body. Your whole food intake needs to be food that is very healthy and very clean, as we call it. Okay, number two, I do rely more on supplements, especially the protein supplements like the Hydro. I've been using that exclusively since it's come out, and I'll mix it in with my cream of rice in the morning, and I'll have it post-workout as well. But a good protein powder, a good fish oil supplement helps with inflammation, with joints, with the cardiovascular system, hormones, and things like that. Vitamin D for the immune system, glutamine for recovery in the immune system. So yes, I do avail myself of the supplements that are available to me to help me recover faster.
That covers all the bases, I feel like.
Okay.
So I believe we have a second giveaway that we want to do.
Yeah,
today.
let's do another giveaway. What do you think?
Another giveaway. Lee, you got a trivia question?
Trivia question. Okay. So here's the trivia question. This one's a little bit harder. Hunter won the Junior USAs and the national championships in the same year. What other top Olympian, actually what other Mr. Olympia, won a junior level national show and the NPC nationals in the same year also? That's a tough one.
It's a junior level overall and the national pro qualifier overall in the same year for that trivia.
Okay, got it.
I know who
What he said.
Junior asks, how many hours/days do you work out? So I guess hours a day probably is what's being asked.
How many hours a day I'm at the gym versus how many hours a day I'm training are two very different questions.
24/7 sport.
No, I'm just making a joke about how I take my sweet time when I'm at the gym.
Oh.
Yeah. So honestly, from the time I walk in to the time I walk out, it's probably like 2.5-ish hours. That being said, like 20, 30 minutes of it's, mobility, use the bathroom, drink some water, say hi to everyone, this, that, and another. And then another 30 of it after is, posing, taking pictures if I need to take pictures, making cream of rice if I'm actually eating after I train, or making a shake if I'm drinking a shake, and, it's kind of for a second before I leave. So, actually training though, I train for about an hour and 15 to an hour and 30 minutes. And, I'm very different from him in the standpoint that I take a lot longer rest periods. And at the end of the day, really the only thing that matters to me about my training is the effort and output and performance of my top sets. So I train a little longer than he did when he was competing, probably.
So my rule of thumb, as far as setting the cadence and the pace when training, and it's kind of always been my rule of thumb, is that I rest long enough to catch my breath in between sets. So I let my cardiovascular system tell me when it's time to start the next set. Pretty simple. Okay, I think we got to do that second giveaway, and in the meantime, we're going to field just 2-3 more questions, and then we're gonna wrap it up. For those of you that are just tuning in, make sure that you go to our YouTube, our Labrada YouTube. You're going to be able to see the entire recording of today's live there. And for those of you that want to check out the new Labrada Pro Series line, go to labradaproseries.com, and you can get a special deal there.
Do we have a winner?
Do we have an answer?
Do we have an answer?
I do have an answer.
All right. Let's go ahead and hear the answer then.
Okay. So
Do we have responses?
Go ahead. Let's hear it.
The answer is Mr. Phil Heath.
first person to answer, Phil Heath, is Cole Eastvold.
Oh,
All
hey,
right,
I
Cole.
know Cole. Cool.
All right.
Yeah, that's
hey,
awesome,
that's
man.
not fair.
Why is that
Because Cole competed there too. I'm just kidding.
No, yeah.
Okay.
Anyways,
All right.
looking forward to you trying these, Cole. You guys tell me what you think
Okay.
about them, man.
No, it's all good. It's all good. All right, Cole. Good man. All right, so let's take a couple more questions before we wrap it up today.
Kind of a logistical question. Can we find Hunter's exercise program somewhere?
Where can we find your exercise programs?
So currently there is no like ebook or PDF or anything like that actually is like tit for tat program. That being said, I've been training on a push-pull arms legs split for the past 2 years now. And if I had to guess, there's probably like 5 or 6 videos on YouTube for each workout at this point. That being said, I definitely, at this point with the amount of, interest and requests I've gotten, I am going to start working on, like at least push-pull arms legs or, like how to create a split kind of ebook kind of deal. Because, it's something that I'm passionate about and it's something I feel like I can help people with. So keep an eye out for that. But, yeah, in the meantime, you can definitely find like everything you need to really make a program on YouTube if you take the time to research. So,
And for our final question, Eric Burley asks, what kind of pre-workout meal would be good for waking up at 3 a.m. and in gym for 3:30? Whole food meal or protein shake?
I can answer that one.
can I answer it?
Absolutely.
Okay,
But then
so-
I'm going to give my answer
Okay,
because I don't digest as well as you do.
Okay. So when training at the time that you train at, thinking about the meal that you eat upon waking is far less important than thinking about what you eat before you go to sleep. In that environment, in that training time, the meal you eat before you go to sleep is going to be, in my opinion, more important than the one you eat before you train, because with the time that you're saying you're waking up, which is 3, and the time that you're in the gym, which is 3:30, I'd recommend nothing more than like maybe a banana and a scoop of whey isolate. That being said, if you're training that early in the morning, it's my personal opinion that a good majority of your daily carbohydrate intake should be that last meal before you go to bed. As back-asswards as that sounds, that's my personal opinion.
I agree 100% with what he just said, and in fact, that was exactly what I was going to recommend in terms of the pre-workout meal. If you're waking up at 3 and you're training at 3:30, or let's say you just got off work and for whatever reason you're hungry and you're heading to the gym, you got to have something in your stomach, which I recommend a banana and a scoop of the whey protein, like that hydro mixed with water. Go straight to the gym. Right after the gym, hit another scoop of the hydro, and then go eat your breakfast shortly thereafter. And you'll be golden.
So I think that is about a wrap on our Q&A segment. Hunter, Lee, do you guys have any closing thoughts or sentiments you want to share?
Go ahead, Hunter.
Yeah. I just want to first and foremost thank all of y'all for coming and joining us, y'all being the viewers. Made this an awesome experience for me. We had enough questions to interact with y'all. Hopefully y'all got something out of it as well. I am really looking forward to these supplements making their way out into the world and people actually trying them. It's been a labor of love for me and everyone here at Labrada, and that's the next thing I want to say is to everyone that helped out with this project here at the company. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. We did a great job in a very short time frame.
Kudos to the team.
So kudos to the team. And then last but not least, for the next couple weeks after this launch, I'm going to be very hyper attentive to answering as many questions as I can regarding the series on all of my social media platforms. So if you do have any questions or concerns or anything like that, please don't hesitate to reach out. We do want to get to them. We do want to interact with y'all. At the end of the day, y'all are who we made these supplements for. So please let us know what y'all think.
That's exactly right. Just want to say thank you to everybody for joining us today. And just remember that Labrada Nutrition, we're here to help you to reach your goals. I'm Lee Labrada, coming at you from the Labrada Nutrition Gym in Houston, Texas with IFBB Olympian Hunter Labrada.